Hello and welcome to the Mat to Mastery podcast. I am your host, Sheb Gina, and it gives me great pleasure to invite inspirational leaders within the martial arts domain where we get to explore how martial art principles translate to leadership. Now, throughout these interviews, our aim is to learn how martial art mindset empowers individuals to conquer life's challenges. And today I have a very special guest all the way from London, Mr. Nick Tiscoe. Yay! Welcome, Nick. Welcome, Nick, to the Mat to Mastery podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on today. Yeah.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Now, for those of us who haven't had the privilege to meet you, tell us a little bit about your background in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, when you started, what inspired you, how you got from mat to mastery.
So I'm originally from London, but I actually live in Cornwall, and I've been surfing for a long time. I got to a pretty decent level with surfing, and I was looking for something else that I could do that would help. Always been interested in physical activity to complement my surfing. And so I started getting interested in martial arts and actually thought I wanted to do MMA, so mixed martial arts. So I found a gym that offered that locally, and I started doing that. I was doing jiu-jitsu, wrestling, kickboxing, and then I just kind of fell more in love with jiu-jitsu. And the other things kind of fell off the wayside. I mean, obviously wrestling's still really a part of that, but the kickboxing, that kind of just fell away. I still like it, but my ideas of MMA, not so much. I don't really have a desire to do that. And I was fortunate with my connections with London to also go and spend some time to learn a little bit more about jiu-jitsu up there. So I went up and visited Roger Gracie Academy in central London. I met his dad, Mauricio Gomes, straight away, right at the beginning of my journey, and had the good fortune to get a really good start with jiu-jitsu. And then I just carried on, really. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication to stick to anything. And then we're saying like 13, 14 years in now. And there are a lot of hurdles, but I'd say that I'm a pretty stubborn person. And I dig in when things get hard. And I think that's something that jiu-jitsu teaches you as well. So yeah, and here we are now, and I'm a first degree black belt now.
That's amazing. What was it that about jiu-jitsu where you were drawn to?
So I was watching a bit of MMA, and I think this is very typical of a lot of people. I was watching, and I thought I understood fighting a little bit, and there's a lot of striking going on, and then the fight ended up on the ground, and I was sort of like, oh, boring, get them up, but they didn't, and then the commentator goes, oh, and he's using his jiu-jitsu, and yeah, look at that, he's got him in a kimura, and I was sort of like, what are these words? What is he saying? And he won the fight with a kimura lock, and then they shut, and I was confused because I wasn't sure what I'd seen. They showed it back in slow motion. I saw this guy having his arm bent, and I was like, oh wow, that's how he won the fight. That's amazing. And then that's actually one of the first things I learned in a class that I went to as well, was a kimura, and I was like, this is amazing stuff. But I think the other thing that was really intriguing to me is how difficult it is, and in a really similar way to surfing. So I learned a kimura in one of my first classes, and practicing it on my training partner it was easy and it made sense. And of course I was, wow, look, if I bend his arm like this, he's going to tap. So then when it got to free sparring, could I do that? Not at all. I couldn't get anywhere close to this guy's arm. Never mind any other positional control that might lead me close to getting a submission on my partner. And the way that's similar to surfing is that when you learn to surf, and I know this from teaching people, start on the beach, you show them how to catch a wave and how to get up, and they say most of the time they can do it to some degree, and then they get in the water and they can't do it because the water has other ideas. I think that the waves are like an experienced opponent in jiu-jitsu, and you have to really get in tune with how it all works, how the movements work, how the rhythm is. And if you can't do that in the ocean, you're not going to be able to stand on a surfboard. And if you can't do that on the mat or in a fighting scenario, then you're not going to do that to a person. You're not going to be able to control the situation. And I like the element of controlling jiu-jitsu. So you can hurt people with jiu-jitsu, but you can also choose not to. And you can obviously stop them from hurting you. And then, and I think that's just got that big similarity with surfing. Obviously, being a very passionate surfer is really intriguing to
me. I love that. The waves become your stronger opponent. That's awesome. I love that. What are one of the principles of whether it be martial arts or jiu-jitsu that you live by?
Respect. I think it's a friend of mine who's a black belt really articulated it this well the other day. He just said that the first lesson he learned in martial arts when he was 6 years old, before he even knew how to tie his belt, was respect. And it's because you bow in at the beginning of the class, and he was taught to bow. And some people don't do that. It blows my mind that there are clubs where they're not bowing to each other. And what he kind of said is, you've been provided a clean academy with nice mats. You've got an instructor that's knowledgeable. You've got training partners that are willing to let you have a go. The least you could do is show a little bit of respect. And how do you show respect? It's really difficult to understand whether people are showing respect, because we've all got our different nuances and stuff. If you meet a stranger, it's easy to take them the wrong way. I mean, I'm not on that level like the Japanese, and they meet each other, they're all bowing. But I mean, that's why they do it, is that they're making sure they show respect. I know we handshake, but I think that's odd. You're not going to handshake a complete stranger. But there is just this little acknowledgement. And I think that however you go about it, it's really important to show respect. And I think if you do that, you're going to get by no matter what you're doing. If you're in another country, if you're going to buy something in a store, if you can just show respect to the other person, then you're going to get it back. And there's really good examples where cliches where people are talk about how people are disrespectful, like in a restaurant. If you're disrespectful to the waiting staff, I don't know why anybody would do that, because those people have got food in their hands. Just if you're respectful to those people, they're going to look after you really well. I mean, isn't that what you want?
100%. That's why I get some of my coffees free. Every time and there's been times where the queue would be like, almost 10, 20 people in the queue. And because I'm such a regular and loyal customer, I don't often have to wait to get to the front of the line. They just call me, Chef, here's your coffee. Love it.
Exactly. That kind of thing does go a long way. Like you say, your loyalty as well, which is another big attribute that's easy to take from martial arts. And I think it's easy to get lost now. I think within the noise of social media and people's ability to communicate their ideas, it's easy to lose loyalty, because people get confused about what's right and wrong and what they should or shouldn't do. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't, and maybe people think I'm alluding to this, that shouldn't train elsewhere. That's not what I mean. But being loyal, and it pays dividends, like you just said. You didn't ask anything of your coffee shop, and they didn't tell you where you should and shouldn't go. You've just showed up regularly, and then they've gone, here you go. And they're looking up, they look after you. You're that familiar, friendly face that's, polite to them and respectful to them and loyal to them. And then they pay it back to you. And I think that gets taught. It's on offer all the time in a martial art club, pretty much. And if people can choose to take it, and if you're loyal to your club and to your training partners, and then obviously to your teachers in that, then they'll look after you as well. And I think that's again something that we want. We want to be looked after in the process of learning, especially something like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I love it. Now, talking about showing up, and I wonder, for those people who might lose interest or lose inspiration or motivation, what are some of the tips or strategies that you might be able to offer people who might be feeling disengaged or unmotivated, or what are some of the things that you perhaps have used or have recommended or suggested for others who might be feeling uninspired to show up?
Yeah, it can be difficult. Life can be difficult. You explained to me, you've got a job, you've got a side job, you've got family. I've got all of those things too. And sometimes it's, especially here in the UK, in the winter, it's a cold, dark night. And we're talking like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's got dark and it's raining. And the last thing I want to do is leave my sofa to go down to the club to train. But when I get there, the lights are on, the friendly faces are there, the smiles are there. We put music on. We find ways to make our training environment more enjoyable. It's a clean environment. But I think what you give and the effort that you put in is what you're going to get back. On just literally overcoming that obstacle of the end of the work day. How do you get yourself there? My mum actually had a really good thing. Like, she didn't call it advice. This is just something that she used to do when she had a gym membership. She worked really hard in this office, and at the end of the day, she wouldn't want to go to the gym, but the gym stuff was in her car, so that made it easier. And it's good. It's ready to go. She made sure it was always there, and she always said that she felt better afterwards. So she would tell me that was what she was doing, and I was only 17 when she was telling me that, but it stuck with me that she didn't want to go to the gym, but when she went to the gym and did her thing, then she left feeling great. And this is at the end of, and I could see her really gnarly work day and how stressed that made her, and so I could obviously really quickly understand that. The other thing I say, and this is I love a good sort of, I don't know, cliche analogy saying whatever, but I tell people, you can let the fire burn low, just don't let it go out. So if you're really struggling, but just make your consistency less. So once a week is still once a week, it's consistent. If you're doing it now, I don't know when I'm going to go, and I miss 2 weeks here and I come back one day, and that's not consistent. And by then your fire might go out, and it's a lot harder to start a fire than it is just to keep it going on low. And it's fine to keep it going low. Like, my wife had a baby within her years of training, but she still kept involved. She was still moving about a little bit. She was still supporting me with the club. She would still come to the club, and lo and behold, she's still training. And now our little boy, who's nearly 3, he comes to the club. It disrupts our training if we're both there, but he's getting to see it. So that's a really good example of the fire burning low, because we don't train the way when we're together, if he's there, the way that we would before we had him, where we would have really good tough sparring, and now we don't do that, but we're still doing something, and it inspires him as well. So we're still doing it, and she's still getting to train, but we're also introducing somebody else to it, and that being our boy. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that. What has been the best advice that you've ever been given?
Or
best tips
for jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one, because I think really the best advice is just to try to do jiu-jitsu. I'd say this is really the best advice. Try to do jiu-jitsu that works for you. So what might work for me, and I might teach it, might not work for you. The way that I do something, let's say I show an armbar, I'll have my way of doing it, but I usually try to point out that you might need to adjust it for yourself. And it doesn't matter if it's an armbar or if it's a completely like a whole game and strategy and approach. So some people might not like playing guard, and they'll have to understand it, but they don't have to make it their go-to. And other people, it's vice versa. They will 100% be a guard puller for life. And there's nothing wrong with that. They make it work for them. But don't be led by other people's ideas. So, and actually, I think maybe guard pulling is a really good one, because it's often gets, in all the memes of jiu-jitsu, it gets criticized. the highest. Yeah, jiu-jitsu is something we love, and guard is something that defines jiu-jitsu, because no other martial art uses guard the way that we do. To mock it is ridiculous, because that is one of the core things that jiu-jitsu does. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that's different to any other martial art, and there's a power in it. It was why it was so successful right at the beginning, and it's why it's so famous. But that being said, you don't have to do it, but you have to understand it. So making jiu-jitsu your own is the key, but still, while I guess respecting the values of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. How has jiu-jitsu helped you with your own leadership? Whether that might be leading students in surfing or leading your students on the mats. In what way, shape, or form has that assisted you?
I think that having this kind of a structured approach where there's belt systems and a clearly defined leader, and then when you look at a bunch of black belts, there's different degrees, and then you've got and it really displays the amount of dedication that somebody's had, the years of experience they put in. It doesn't make somebody better, it just means that they've put in the time, and that commands a lot of respect. And you also understand that at the other end of the scale, that if you're looking at a bunch of white belts, what it took them to come onto the mat in the first place. So you have to give a lot of respect to those people. They're terrified in many cases coming into a jiu-jitsu club. And I think that's really important to understand for leadership generally. If it's a working environment, a corporate environment, the cliche of the corporate environment, I think, would be people stepping on heads in order to get up the ladder and forgetting where they came from. That would be a cliche. I don't think that's everywhere at all. I think that a lot of culture, in a professional environment has changed. But understanding, if you come from a martial art background and you understand what it takes to climb up and what the years of experience mean, and also what it takes to be at the bottom, then you're gonna understand how to look after those people at the lower level and lead them really well. You're going to understand how to deal with people who are above you or on the same level as you. And so managing teams and using that kind of structured approach, a hierarchy, but not a hierarchy that, it doesn't just say, oh, well, I'm better than you because I've been here longer. It just says, I can understand where you're coming from, and I can understand where you've been, and we can work together.
I love that. There's this, not a responsibility, but this desire to help the younger ones or the newer ones. So, for example, last night was my daughter's second class. Now, I don't know if you noticed my post, but my recent post about her thinking I was so strict. I'm the worst mother. Apparently, I'm very strict. I don't let her go out here, there, everywhere. Mind you, she's out now playing soccer and doing all sorts of things. But I said to her, listen, if you want more freedom, more freedom, I said, I need you to at least have 6 months worth of self-defense. And then she said, oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, you need to come and join me on the mats, minimum 6 months. And she said, oh, can I drive? Because she's on her L's. L's is like your learners here. And I said, yeah, deal. Let's do it. And sure enough, last night was her second class. And she had this giggle, like her and I would be sparring together. She did this like little giggle like I hadn't heard in a very long time, since she was a kid. And I'm thinking, she's actually having fun. Like, this is actually, I could see some fun coming and some joy being experienced. And I said, oh, and then we're going to do this and watch the professor now. Well, this is just a setup for this and da-da-da. She goes, have you done this before? And I said, yeah. She goes, well, why are you doing it again? Why are you showing me how to do this? And all these questions, which is good. It's a good sign, right? I'm saying, okay, she's asking questions. She's curious. It's a good sign. So it was really interesting how you know, when you mention that, because it's all about now giving to me, I want to share that with her and get that, you know, what I was experiencing. I want her to share that and feel that, and the self-empowerment that I feel when I walk off the mats, you know.
Yeah.
So
No, I
it should
agree.
be
But
free.
actually,
Everyone should do it.
yeah, I actually think that it is a responsibility of higher grades to help carry along a lower grades, because if for no other reason than selfishly that if you look after them, you've got training partners and therefore people to learn from. But I think when you then talk about it and extend it out into the wider world, I think it's a responsibility as a parent to try and encourage your children into this sort of environment. It's partly there's that self-defense aspect, but that can be scary, and I think that's been a mistake of my own at times to talk about too much about self-defense. It makes it a bit serious and a little bit scary, and well, why do I need to be doing that? I mean, we don't live in a hostile area, thankfully, and they shouldn't have to defend themselves, but they might need to. But actually, I think that if you do martial arts and you've done a decent amount of it, you're going to carry yourself in a certain way that you're never going to need to use self-defense anyway. You've already got an aura around you that just says, "Don't even bother," or one that just exudes so much confidence that the type of people that that are a problem are not looking for you. They're looking for weaker people, but or weaker weaker personalities or vulnerable personalities. And if you're a confident person because you do martial arts, you're not vulnerable at all. You're going to have your head held high. You know where you're going. You know what you're doing. You've got a purpose about you all the time. You're not going to be drunk in an alley because, well, you don't have time to do that anymore. You're too busy going from the club to your life and moving on and doing things so you don't put yourself in those situations. And I think that's why that responsibility as a parent is really strong. I mean, I have two older kids and they did it for a bit when they were young. And I keep trying to find ways to get them to come back. And I did see your post and I actually thought it was brilliant. And I wouldn't question you at all. I'd be like, absolutely. You're not there to be their mate anyway. You're there to be the parent and say, this is what I expect of you now. When you're an adult, go do what you want. This, because you do it. You're not putting them in a situation by bringing them to jiu-jitsu that could be potentially a dangerous situation. You know that by not doing it is a potentially dangerous situation for the rest of their lives. What are you asking for 6 months of their life to do a couple of classes a week? Maybe that's not much. You're not telling them they need to be you. You're saying this stuff's going to help you. And jiu-jitsu, and I think probably a lot of martial arts as well, will help you in many ways that you don't see it coming. Just a sense of community, being able to call on people, being able to share your problems with people, job opportunities. There's so many things that come out of being in that kind of community setting, where you've displayed so many good values and attributes about yourself day to day on the mat. They already know a lot of things about you, about how you function, meaning things like respect and humility and loyalty, all the things we look for in other areas of our life.
Yeah. If you were to put all those principles in order, and there's a multiple, there's discipline, there's just so much ability to think on the spot, ability to make decisions, feeling in confidence, in all of that. What do you think your top 3 has been that you were able to take away for yourself?
Definitely discipline, loyalty, and respect. But I think that where all the different values exist, and they're countless, I wouldn't put any single one like wholly at the top, because they all like function slightly differently depending on the situation and depending on the time in your life and what's sort of required of you. And you can't really have some without the others as well. You must have them all. and it's a learning process. So when we have teach kids classes, of course I try to instill that in them, but I'm not hammering them all at them all the time, like getting them to repeat them or anything like that. It's just stuff that comes up, and I take it as it comes within a class. If I see a certain type of behavior going on, then I'll talk about that particular value, rather than trying to overwhelm them, because otherwise it gets a little preachy. And also they just switch off. People will switch off. So I think that's something else to understand about if you're leading in that kind of environment in a martial arts setting, is like how to communicate to people in a way that keeps them tuned in, it keeps them engaged, allows them to buy into the value that you're trying to share with them, and not switch off and say, this guy's doing my head in, I don't want to listen to him anymore. I think that's the worst thing you can have if you're a manager in a professional environment, is your team underneath you say, this guy's doing my head in, I don't want to listen to him anymore. You've failed, and you could blame part of that on those people in the team, but nobody more so than the manager at the top. If you can't keep that team, it's definitely failed. So
yeah. So Nick, how does one then, whilst planting the seeds and putting it out there to the team, can they, influence? Is there a way that you can, maybe you've experienced this, I don't know, but can you think of a way, or is there an example that you've used that you can give, that you've used in your experience?
Well, the easiest way is to lead by example. So, if you're at the top of the tree and you're lazy, then what do you expect your team to be? I think here's a good one, like a really cliche corporate thing. The CEO's out playing golf, and everyone knows it, while everyone else is working, and the further down the food chain they're working, but they follow that guy and they know that guy's out playing golf. It's like, well, how do you think they see it? I know some business can be done on the golf course, don't get me wrong, and also, they're the boss, but still they need to find a way to demonstrate something out of that. If it's a working time environment, then you need to be demonstrating a little bit. So I join in my warm-ups, like most of the time I will be doing the warm-up as well. I don't sometimes I'm standing there. Look, yesterday I did 6 hours of coaching, like classes. I'm not doing all of the warm-ups, because that's madness, but I will join in my core classes. I'll join in, and a lot of the time over the years, when I've been, certainly in the lower belts, when I was teaching, because I was teaching from purple belt, because we're in a small town, like far away from where my teacher was, I would teach the position, and then I would partner up with people and do and practice as well. So just like I'm expecting them to do, I'm doing it, and then when it comes to tournament time, I was always the first one entering the tournament, saying, "Oh, are we going?" I'm doing it. And still wouldn't get everybody doing it, but I'm trying to lead the way, lead by example, and not just send my people out there to go do my dirty work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you said, you lead by example. They feel inspired and motivated by when they look up to you. Your students, obviously, as a black belt, as the professor on the mats. And I know I look up to my professor. He's done the hard yards, and it's respect, as you put it at the start, as you mentioned, it's that respect.
And what you're saying there, you look up to your professor, and I think that even at other belts, if somebody's a higher belt, you're a purple belt, blue belts will look up to you. They'll also be gunning for you, but they will look up to you, and it's up to you to set an example. There are certain things that you should and shouldn't do, just generally in life, and it's easy for people to say, "Hey, don't put your professor on a pedestal. because they're just people and they can be dirtbags too. Absolutely, they can be. It's important to recognize that they can be. But I'm going to start like I start with everybody, is that everybody always gets the same amount of respect at the beginning. You've got 100% from me. It's yours to lose though. So I am going to look up to my teachers, and I'm going to expect them to do good things. It doesn't mean that, if I'm a completely brand new strange black belt, I'm not just going to leave my kids with them, but unattended or whatever. I expect, but I expect good behavior. And if it's on the mat with socially, of another black belt, I would expect them not to date their students, for example. It doesn't mean that you can't date somebody who happens to be a student, but the mat isn't somewhere that conversation is happening. So that's what I mean. You've got a clear boundary, because people are there, they look up to you. They're not there because they want to have that social thing going on. They just want to come and do jiu-jitsu. So there's a big responsibility there from anybody. And so every belt level's the same as well. You don't go into the club thinking, I don't expect you to go in a club and go, look at all these guys everywhere. It's like, that's not what you're there thinking. You're there thinking, here we go. Here's jiu-jitsu. I'm going to be learning jiu-jitsu right now. There's my training partners. How many of them are here?
I have no thought of that. I thought about, my God, I thought I must be crazy being the only female on the mats here amongst all these guys. What am I thinking? I have had that thought.
That's interesting insight as well, though, like to hear that thought, from a female. It's almost like a genuine concern. Like, is this the right thing for me to do? But you should feel okay to do it, because it isn't
exactly
like we do a women's class, and that's to help women get started. It's really the main reason. And also to allow the women to train, to know that when they come into that class, the people are going to be a more relevant size, weight, strength ratio for them. But the other classes are not the men's classes. So they're just jiu-jitsu. That's all it is. We don't have a men's class. We have jiu-jitsu, and then we do have like a women's only class. And it is only because it's just smaller people. I would consider, if I had like a really, really big club, if I had a few hundred people in my club, I would consider having a lightweight class. Say, if you want to come to this class, this is for lighter people, and also a heavy one, because it might be, if you've got people that are 100 kilos naturally, they might find it frustrating to be sparring with me at 78, 80 kilos. They might find it a bit boring. Or a female who's only 50 kilos, for them, it probably doesn't feel like the greatest round for them if they're over 100 kilos. So, maybe a heavier and a lighter one would be better. But I do get that from the female perspective. I mean, like I said, my wife's been training a long time. She's been the only girl on the mat for a long time. Well, we now have created quite a good culture within our club. We've had up to like 20 women in the club. They haven't all been at the same time, and some have had to leave. They've left town, they've gone traveling and things like that. So we have lost some. Some haven't wanted to carry on, and that's fine. But we've got a good core now. We've probably got about 5 or 6 that are very consistent. And when I think about that, like how my wife was training for years and being really one of the only, or maybe there were 2 or 3 at tops. And even then, some of them have gone. They don't train with us anymore. So it's really hard to get traction and to keep it going, I think, in the female area. And probably because, like you said, if you're questioning that and you've stuck to it, imagine what other women are thinking when they come in. And even our consistent girls sometimes say, "Oh, dude, you're so sweaty, it's disgusting." It is. You don't actually say it to me. There's a couple other people, but I get that as well. and sometimes I've trained with guys and I'm like, bro, that's, you know, I'm thinking in my head, you are one sweaty mess, especially in no-gi. But if in the context of what jiu-jitsu is and how we fight and how we do jiu-jitsu, that's probably one of the best things you can have. A slippery, horrible, stinking, sweaty person, if you can get used to that, nobody in your space will ever be able to intimidate you. You know, a lot of fights and like harassment is done by intimidation, even just by looking at somebody a certain way. Literally dismantle somebody with it, you know, in a street context. You know, now you're going to hand over whatever you've got because they're looking at you a certain way. But if you're used to some horrible, you know, hairy, sweaty dude in no-gi that's just literally rubbed his sweaty belly on your face, if you can handle that, his sweat dripped in your eye or your mouth, you'll be all right. You know, you're going to be all right in just about any uncomfortable situation.
Oh yeah. And that's what I talk about in one of my keynotes, is that being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah,
you know, it's going to get uncomfortable, man. You got to get used to it. You got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, and that's where the breakthroughs happen.
Yeah.
You know, and I have played defense for so many years. I was one of two females when I first started, constantly defense. And I broke down. You know, I was just done. I'm just done with being put into these submissions. I'm being done with all these sweeps. I'm just done. But then it was those breakdowns that created the breakthroughs.
Yeah.
And it's that persistence, because after studying and learning more about martial arts, and I read recently that in Japanese, the word us is to push and endure. It's to determination, persistence, and patience. And it's just, and you just bring that to life. You know, if you can have all those on the mat, you can take that everywhere you go. You know, and that's what I want to teach my daughter. That's what I want her to instill, to learn that. And that, because I get that. I walk out some of the mats. Sometimes I'll come home from after a sparring session and I'm crying, and I've got no shame to admit that. Like I ring my husband. I'm like, oh, he's like, are you all right? I'm like, oh, I'm just crying because I just had the most amazing role, and it's just out of gratitude and the love that I have for, and the appreciation, right? It's everything. It's all encompassing. It's a euphoric, you know, and there's moments where I've experienced that euphoric feeling, and it's like, oh my gosh, have you been in a situation like that? Have you experienced anything similar?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you know, like overpowering a really tough training partner finally, you know, or perhaps somebody that you know, when you first train with them, they just dust you. And then, you know, a bit of time goes by, a few months, maybe a couple of years, and you go see that person again. It might be somebody in another gym somewhere that you know. And then now you've got the answers for them, you know, and we don't know why. That could be that they let their foot off the gas, but you had yours on the gas, you know, and you've been working. But I think the thing that, from just a purely technical jiu-jitsu side of things, as hard as it may seem at the time and when you're going through it, but the best people at guard passing and submitting are the people that have incredible guards, who have had it, and the only reason they've got it is because they've been put there. They're usually the smaller people or slightly smaller people. They've had every single angle tested and pressured and broken down, and they've figured out how to fix it. So now when they finally get to be on top, they know how to dismantle somebody's guard. I think that there are worse guard passers. I'm sure people are going to hate me for saying it. My friends that are the bigger people. It's not always true, but I mean, they might just naturally be okay at guard passing because they're big. Whereas if you get a smaller person that can pass a bigger person's guard, then you know that they've got something about them. And the only reason that they've got it is because it's been pressure tested, or, you know, instilled upon them through all those years they've been putting on their back. So I think it's actually better, you know, and a lot of people will say this, women are often very technical in jiu-jitsu, and I think that's what they mean. is that everything has to work properly. If it's working, if you see a female, exhibiting good jiu-jitsu, it's because technically it's good. If you're in the context of, girls and guys training, then you can see it on display really well. That it's often because you've had so much weight piled onto you for all these years, being forced to be on your back, playing the guard, and and carrying the extra weight, carrying the discomfort of, sometimes a horrible partner. But that being said, it also should be, that approach should be moderated. But one thing that I can obviously, maybe I can see in something that you do, you do public speaking. A lot of people would find that a very uncomfortable situation to be in. But if you've had a crazy week of jiu-jitsu training, sparring, horribly sweaty, your hair being pulled, and you look like you've gone through a head backwards, and come to a Friday afternoon, and now you're up on a podium doing a talk, you're clean, you're prepared, you've done all of this stuff behind you. Nothing about being up there on the podium is going to intimidate you. I should imagine that you would feel, pretty strong and confident in yourself from what you'd have done. Compare yourself in that position to what you've been doing all week on the mat. You should be feeling pretty good by the time you get up to do that speaking. And I think that's one of the ways that jiu-jitsu can help people.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Don't get me wrong, I still get nervous and I still don't get things perfect, but that's okay. I'm completely fine. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I used to be not okay with making mistakes, and I used to be, I want to learn everything by yesterday, Yeah. But I've learned as I got older that, perfectionism is just one of those things that doesn't exist. Or, it's, yes, there's perfection. There's this saying called perfection. Practice is perfect. And a few people, including one of my mentors in jiu-jitsu, he would say perfectionism. He says practice makes, no, what did he say? Perfectionism. Say again?
Perfect practice makes perfect performance, or something like that.
Along those lines. And I said, wow, yes, that is so true. And yesterday, one of the speakers who I got to meet, he, in his presentation, said, well, I don't believe in practice makes perfect. I believe in practice makes confidence. I went, ooh, I like that as well. It's so true.
If you did manage to achieve perfectionism in anything, well, they would take the joy out of everything beyond that. So the last thing you want to do is complete jiu-jitsu, because if you've completed it, there's nowhere else to go. So surfing's a great one like that, because I think there's the nature of it calls us back again and again and again, because there could always be a bigger wave. There could always be a longer wave. There could always be a more perfect wave. You could, on the wave, you could always do one more maneuver. Maybe somebody else could see it. Maybe you could go faster. There's always going to be something. You will never, ever complete it. And I think that's something that's the two things really get together. I got black belt, and it's kind of like, I thought that's where the summit was. I actually wrote some stuff about this. It's like, there, I can see it. It's in my grasp. I knew the black belt was coming. I'd reached a certain point, and I was like, I'm pretty confident it's coming. And then you get it, and then you're like, hang on, what are all those mountains? Which way do I go? Which one do I do? You don't even know where to go anymore, because you know that there's further to go, but you don't know which way to go. But that, when you make friends with that idea and get comfortable with that idea, that's brilliant, because now it's up to me. When you're a white belt, it's not. You've got 4 stripes, blue belt, 4 stripes, purple belt, and so on. You know the journey. You know what you need to do. You know you're just gonna show up the class, go to a tournament, go to the gradings, X, Y, Z, and those are the things that you just have to do, and you're going to learn the techniques as you go, and it's brilliant, and it's amazing. When you get to black belt, then you have to find your own way to go forward, and then you realize that you'll never complete it, because there is there is nowhere to be finished. It's like a globe. You just go round again.
So that brings me to my next question then, Nick, with regards to mastery. Is there such thing?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you take Roger Gracie, for example, he's, would be considered the greatest of all time jiu-jitsu competitor. Multiple black belt world titles, ADCC, all sorts. He's still training. So I've been on the mat with him in his club. He's at competition class. He's not competing, but he's at competition class. He's enjoying getting stuck in with people. He, invariably has this crazy ability to look casual in his process of crushing a lot of people, but not everybody. And the people take it to him, and they challenge him, and this is somebody that's amassed many world titles and and probably a good fortune in the process, and an incredible club and a membership and following, and seminars all over the world. But he still gets up and goes to his club and gets his gi on and trains with ordinary people as well. And I think that he's always able to find ways to learn something else. And I said this as well in my kids class yesterday, is that don't, like I said to them, don't stop hating your training partner now. They're not your opponent.
Yes.
They're there to help you. If they give you a hard time right now, what does that mean? If they make you tap right now, what has happened? And this new kid spoke up. He put his hand up. I was like, brilliant. A new kid wants to say something. Doesn't even have a gi. This is how new he is. And he said, they've taught you something. They've taught you lesson. Exactly. I'm happy. Jack, my assistant, is a purple belt. I said, look, if Jack taps me out, what's he done? He's taught me a lesson about my jiu-jitsu. There's a hole there. He's challenged me on a certain point, and that's good. I shouldn't feel bad about that. I should feel happy about that, because now it shows there was something else I could learn. I'm now smarter than I was yesterday or 5 minutes ago. My jiu-jitsu just got better. And so mastery, for the large part, as a black belt, certainly within my own club, I don't have a lot of confidence with most of the people I train with, but I definitely have people certainly at the higher end of our belts that will push me as well, make me work harder, make me find a way. Even yesterday with one of my brown belts, I've known him since he was a white belt, and he swept me, and I was like, oh, that was sneaky. I didn't see it coming. And then, I kind of swept him, ended up back in exact same position, and he went to do the same sweep again. Not this time, buddy. I learned it. I learned that within a 5-minute roll with this training partner, a really good guy, and I learned something. And also then he has this other thing he does a lot where he sweep you, let you come back up straight into the triangle. Not for me today, I'm afraid, because you've done this to me a couple of times, and I came up, I bounced back up, and there was no triangle for him to tap. So but he taught me that, that's,
I love that.
Technically, I've been way ahead of him for a long time, but he's able to, obviously I've taught him stuff that's helped give him a game where he can find a way to challenge me, by me having dominated him in the past. I guess he's then found the answers to that, and now I have to try a lot harder to be that dominating force. So mastery, to a degree, I think, but it's I'm happy with the level of mastery that I've got, and I'm happy that there's further mastery to achieve. I definitely feel like I've achieved some mastery. Same in surfing as well. But just like that with surfing, I still go surfing every day. Surfing for 30 years. I'm sure that every beginner I ever taught was like, look at this guy, what a freak. He can just get up every single time. I'm like, yeah, but that's just like one part of surfing. So,
I love it.
Yeah, I couldn't knock. If I took a surfboard out in a lesson to demonstrate to somebody, I couldn't fail in my demonstration. Never. would I fail to just catch a basic wave and pop up to my feet and show them how it's done. And they would be amazed, round of applause. But that isn't mastery to me. There's beyond that. You know, for them, that would be mastery. So
yeah. Got it.
Goes on, and I think that's a nice thing about it.
Got it. Yeah, it's never ending. Never ending. Do you ever pursuing, constantly evolving and growing? It's just constant. I love it. And there's just different various levels and levels and levels and levels. Hence, I suppose why we get the stripes, right? You know, stripe 1, stripe 2, then and then it's the next belt, and then it's again stripe 1, stripe. So yeah, I get it. That's awesome. I love how you incorporate your surfing and jiu-jitsu. It just makes such a beautiful blend. I'm wondering, were you able to use the metaphors and the experience gained in surfing in your jiu-jitsu practice, whether that be for yourself or vice versa?
Yeah, 100%. You know, you talked earlier about having these breakdowns where you're like finishing and you're crying, going home, and you know, there's a lot of it, like, you know, kind of sort of GIF videos and memes where showing people after training crying and, you know, whatever. But you break through that, and then the achievements are just on the other side of that discomfort and the challenge. And when I was younger surfing, I just loved surfing. I didn't even know if I was doing it well. I didn't even care. I had my board, and I knew that if anybody saw me, they'd be like, look at that guy, there's a surfer. And I was happy about that, you know, and because I thought it was so cool. And then when I started to get a little bit better, or like I was in the water more and more independently, or with people surfing with people who I could tell that they knew a bit more, or, you know, they're a bit older than me, they've been surfing for longer than me. Then it's kind of like, right, I want to do what you're doing. And one of those things is paddling out the back beyond the waves, to where the waves are unbroken, and catch the green waves. And I'm like, right, I'm trying to do that. I'm getting knocked back. So I'm paddle. Wave hits me, just knocks me back in. How do I get out? Oh, you've got to duck dive. What? Oh, okay. I'm going to sink this board under a wave. And I'm trying to do that. And if you, I don't know if you've been surfing, but anytime that you see people learning to duck dive, what happens is they stick their head down, they stick the nose of the board down, and their butt's in the air and the tail of their board's in the air, and they just get clipped by the wave and sent back in. They look like a little duck, literally, like unable to do anything. And every time I'd nearly get there, so I paddle and I tried, and I was smashing through waves, and I'm nearly there. I can see the lineup where everyone sat there coolly, just waiting for a wave, just in the sunshine. Looked so easy. Then one more big wave would come, and it clipped me and send me back another 20 meters. And I'd be crying. I was 15 years old, like crying, so angry. But I never stopped. And I'd always be like, but I still want to be there. I'm not going to quit. It's like it literally was saying, go on, go home, little boy. And I was like, nope, back again. And, you know, I definitely use that with jiu-jitsu, because, you know, every single time when I was a white belt, there was a purple belt, he's still a friend of mine, and every time I sparred with him, he would do the same thing. The way that he passed my guard, the way he transitioned around my head, the way he'd take my back, and then he'd bow and arrow choke me every time. I'm like, how are you on my back again? But I wasn't going to be like, I'm not going to spar with that guy anymore. But guess who does that guard pass, transition, back take, and bow and arrow now, like religiously? So, and funnily enough, our same teacher, that was one of his things as well, you know. And as lighter people, it was definitely a really good strategy. So getting smashed that way constantly and repeatedly was a lot like learning to duck dive in the surf. And then now fast forward and turn it the other way, like the way that, you know, jiu-jitsu can be very tough, and you know, and if you go to black belt sparring, you know, like brown and black belts only, and it's pretty gnarly. And if you're competing at that level, and you just start to build better legs, you know, and your base is better. The ability for somebody to sweep you when you come back into an ordinary class becomes a hell of a lot harder. So for a lower belt to sweep somebody that's been to, not just being a black belt, that's not good enough. go to black belt training, and then bring those lessons back into an ordinary class, and you'll suddenly realize that why is it that guy's so hard to sweep? Because he's just been training with 20 animal like black belts. It's crazy. And so then take that ability to base and stay on your feet, and take that into the surf. As a good surfer, then you're gonna go, right, now I know how to negotiate big, bumpy, unruly waves that are heavier and faster. My ability to stay on my feet, not just get knocked off, or even if the wave is trying, I'm fighting back instead of just sort of giving in and going, oh well, I'll fall off now. No. I'm gonna stay on my feet. You're really gonna have to knock me down. And I definitely really feel like I've taken that from jiu-jitsu into the surf, and it's helped me to ride bigger waves, helped to have more confidence. If I'm getting held down by a bigger wave, because I really put myself out into some stuff, I'd just be much more relaxed, much like if I was being held down by a 100-kilo brown belt. It's like, don't panic, been here before, don't need to panic. This is just another guy. Yeah, he's a heavy guy, but he's going to hold me down a little bit. We're going to work our way out. It's uncomfortable. And it's the same thing with a wave. It's holding me down, but I'm not fighting back. So it's not really holding me down. I'm just there.
Yes.
I'm there rolling with it, and I will come up, and I'll come up in a moment. As long as I don't thrash out, I'm not going to use up all my gas. I'm not going to use up my oxygen, and I'll be up, and it'll be fine. And I think that's those two ends of the scale would definitely really help. Like the lessons from being a learner surfer, and the lessons from toughing it out on the mat to go back as an advanced surfer is really good.
I love that. I love how the skills are just super transferable, super relatable, intertwined. I love it. One of the, I'm mindful of time now. What are some of the, like, because you've said your wife is a brown belt.
Yep.
Is that what? Yep.
Just gave it a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Now, and you've had multiple other women join the mats as well. What has been one of the top advice or tips or feedback that you've given to a woman?
I think actually this isn't just for women. This is a strategy approach that I take, and I think it has served women really well because they're lighter. So a really good strategy approach within sparring. And let's just make this for a moment just a technical thing, not because your question could be like on the approach to everything as a whole. Like, how it could be your question could be like, how do you join a club, or what do you expect on a mat, or So I want to keep it technical for a minute. That my general approach is not to try to sweep anybody or submit anybody. So if I'm on my back, I'm not trying to sweep you. I'm just going to try and make sure that I maintain my points of contact and don't let you pass my guard. I'll let you do all the work, and you get tired, you get frustrated. You'll end up in a position where a sweep will become easy. I'm not going to go straight into that, guard playing position and try to set up my De La Riva favorite sweep or whatever it might be, because all you're doing is showing your hand. You're telling your partner how to pass your guard. If you go and the first thing you do is immediately establish your De La Riva guard, you're going, this is De La Riva guard. And I go, okay. I go in my little brain of like guard passing, how to pass De La Riva guard, and do it. If you don't give them anything, you've just got points of contact, you've just got guard, and you're not fixed to be in one position, you're just fixed to have 4 points of contact, then you should be able to maintain that guard for a lot longer, because it isn't a guard that can be passed, because there's no exact blueprint, because it keeps changing. Every time somebody touches a grip that you've got, you go, I didn't want that one. That hand's there now. You were going to move my foot. I didn't want my foot there. I'm putting it here. So, but I'm never going to just overly tie, myself into a fixed guard position. I will do it if I feel like they've fallen into a bad position, stood up, they've lost their balance or whatever, and now I will put my proper De La Riva hooks in and finish a sweep, or whatever it might be, or oh, their posture is really broken, the triangle is just there. And so that would be the time. And I think why that would be important for women as well is because obviously, again, being lighter, it's like, don't stop trying to just immediately sweep the big guy. Fresh at the beginning of a round, you've got if you're 50 kilos and you've got an 80-kilo person, and they're not even the biggest people, but 80 kilos on top, or past your guard, it's going to be a difficult ask to come back again. So don't try to sweep them. Don't try to submit them. Try to frustrate them and let them make the mistakes. Let them fall. And then, then if you do manage to get on top, again, if they're significantly bigger than you, stop trying to hold them down because you can't. So, but keep moving so that they get tired and frustrated and they don't know where you're going. If you hold them in a certain way, they'll know like there's X escape that I need to do to get out of here. And if you really are only 50 kilos, they might just bench press you, which is rubbish. I know it's a rubbish technique, but and I don't do it. But people will, and that's you then getting frustrated. But if you were moving in the first place, that bench press wouldn't work. So no one can bench press a barbell that moves. So 50 kilos is a lot to be running around somebody's body. As far as like the general approach to just coming to a club to training, it's just trying to. I know it's maybe easy for me as a guy, but I think I've had some insight with my wife. Training is just remember that you're there. You're just another person to do jiu-jitsu. You're another training partner. Keep it serious, but like not. You don't have to be like horrible about that. You can be yourself, but it's just take it like make everybody take you seriously by taking it serious, and it's the same thing for guys as well. Don't let it get led down a way of like like people. I find like women have complained. My wife's complained about people that don't roll properly, and there's a difference between like guys are not rolling properly with me because I'm a girl. It's like, well, you insist on it, but also they still have to take some weight off for sure, or figure out a way to use more technique and not bench press and stuff like that. But it's just command and demand the respect that you're going to give it, and you expect it back. And if at the end of the day, though, any training partner for anybody, if you feel like, having been to a club, this guy is not a good training partner for me, could be a girl as well. Don't roll with them. You don't have to roll with it. I'm sitting.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sitting this one out. If it's a higher grade, you could get worried about that. Oh yeah, but it's like the brown belt enforcer. I feel like I should have to. But if that person makes you feel uncomfortable, or you feel like it's really not a value to either of you, just politely decline it. What are you going to say? You have to. At the end of the day, if you're in a club and somebody ever said you have to, and everyone stops and looks at you like you have to, you're in the wrong place. You need. That's not a good club. You need to leave that club. But there aren't any good clubs that would expect that of you. And I know this because I know that Roger Gracie Academy, for example, there's so much respect. There are so many good black belts, and there are so many very experienced and coral belts. It's like you get a place with coral belts, then there isn't going to be so much. There isn't going to be any messing around lower down the food chain, and you shouldn't feel like you have to be a certain way. You're just another person doing jiu-jitsu. And I don't know. I hope that would be good advice for people.
No, that's awesome advice. That's really good advice. Thank you. Have you experienced any challenges from your experience from mat to mastery? And if so, how did you overcome them?
What sort of challenges?
Right, studying martial arts. What sort of challenges have you faced?
Well,
if any.
I think maybe just the biggest thing is injury. But I would say like it's too easy, it's too simplified to just say, oh look, that's jiu-jitsu that did that. And my non-jiu-jitsu friends and my family, like my dad, for example, go, whoa, oh, if you've hurt your knee, well, how are you going to do surfing? And perhaps you shouldn't have done the jiu-jitsu, you know? And it's like, well, no, because it could happen. I've also, my best one was I sprained my ankle once washing the car. So I literally did a bit, and this was tragic to me at the time because I was in Australia and we borrowed a car from a friend and their apartment, and we were leaving and soon, and I was like, better wash the car. We've been looking after it. But the very next day, I was supposed to be going to this quiet beach, like a back beach, with a photographer to do some surf shots. Just me and the photographer, and he was going to sell the pictures to a magazine back home. And I was like, this is going to be great. So then that was supposed to happen the next day. So I'm washing the car, and I'm a bit tired. I'm smashing away getting this car clean. And then when I went to go back in the house, there's a small wall. It's like 1.5 feet tall tops. Easy to just step over it. I went to step over it, caught my toe, rolled my ankle, sprained my ankle. Would you say that washing a car was a hazardous thing to be doing, that I shouldn't have been doing that when I was going to be going surfing the next day? Absolutely not. It's just bad luck. It was my tiredness. You know, I wasn't, you know, I clearly wasn't thinking at the time. And when I've done things in jiu-jitsu, invariably, they've been stupid things where I haven't been thinking. I have hurt my knee trying to force my way past somebody's open guard. I'm just leaning in, they're pushing back, I'm forcing it to happen, and then ping, my knee went like a pop. And I'm like, what the hell was that? That was so stupid. Why didn't I just change direction?
Yes.
Direct. If things break under tension. So if you create tension, that's when they break. You can't break a ruler without bending it in half. And the only way to not break a ruler if you start to bend it is to just ease off. And it's the same with your joints and everything like that. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You can easily change direction. You can easily tap out to something before it gets on. You can certainly play within certain rule sets as well. So injuries have been a challenge, but really the lesson that is to be learned is like about how do you approach jiu-jitsu, you know, and I'm guilty of it still to this day. It's me, it's not jiu-jitsu. I came back from having a week off from a holiday. I only trained once. And prior to that, I'd been ill, so I hadn't trained much the week before. So in a sense, I'd had a couple of weeks off and I'm feeling pretty good. Went back to training last night. Like I said, I had like 6 hours of teaching, and then I was loads of hard sparring at the end, and I went with hard sparring. And I was like, oh, I'm going to roll with my 100-kilo brown belt tonight. I don't always, why I thought that on my first session back was a good idea. He's a lovely guy, but I was like, why would I think that's a good idea? And not only that, I'm going to pass with pressure passing. And it's like, why did I think that was a good idea? And lo and behold, I feel a little bit stiff this morning. A bit of a stiff neck. My knees are a little bit stiff. And it's like, but jiu-jitsu didn't do that. That was me that did that. You know,
that's so true.
I could easily have changed my approach to who I sparred with and how I tried to pass that guard.
Yeah.
The challenge is, it's too simple to say an injury because of jiu-jitsu. The challenge is like, it's just life throwing a challenge at you. You're going to feel like this. You're going to feel sore, bruised, and battered. Or you can change, that's the outcome. Or you can do something different to get to a different outcome if you want. But said earlier, I was stubborn. You know, and I like to pressure pass. It's like, I like the challenge of the 100-kilo brown belt. You know, I'll pay for it if I do it all the time, but I like it sometimes. So that's what I like about jiu-jitsu. And you know, there's a really famous saying that a ship is safest in harbor, but that's not what ships are made for. So you know, they go out in a high speed.
I love that. We forget we have choice. You know, sometimes we make good choices, sometimes we make a bad choice. You know, but things can also be unpredictable as well.
tripping over the wall. I was one footstep. Why didn't I just take one more step? 2 feet that way and around the wall, I wasn't tripping over the wall. It literally was a choice of going around the wall or over it. And I'm talking 2 feet difference to go around it.
Wow.
And I stepped over the wall and sprained my ankle. And I
Oh,
just sat there that evening going, why can't I just go back and not take that step? I didn't go surfing the next day. I didn't meet up with the photographer. I didn't get my surf shots sold into the magazine or anything. It was just like,
oh.
what a bummer. Well, what a lesson in life. No shortcut.
Don't ever wash the car again.
Never wash the car. No, just don't shortcut, you know. Just do it nicely. The wall was there for a reason. Just to say to go this way.
I love that. I just want to share a very quick story, and I wonder if you have a very similar story. So many years ago, I encouraged my daughter to go roller skating with me down this gentle slope. I said, let's hold hands. It's going to be so much fun. It's so cool. She was like, hell no, it's a dumb idea. Are you crazy, Mom? Like, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Just trust me. We've got this. Anyway, we went down holding hands down this slope. And lo and behold, what happened was my daughter started to drag behind me as my skates decided to pick up some speed. And I've got some momentum and I'm going down and I'm going, holy moly, she's dragging on the ground. I have to let her go. So I had to lower her down. I said, I'll just come back. And meanwhile, I'm still skating out of control, not knowing how to stop. And then out of the side of my eye, I noticed there was a rubbish bin that had a silver handle. So I said, oh, super. So I've got two choices. I either crash into this or I'm just going to grab hold of the handle and hope for the best. And all of a sudden, I grabbed hold of the silver handle. I turned 360 degrees. I sprawled onto the floor. I brake fell, and I got up into combat stance. And then I was like, what the hell just happened? There was a guy on the side. He was about to take his drink of Coca-Cola, and he sort of looked at me, and he's like, are you all right? So I have no idea what happened. Like, it's like my mind just took over, like this autopilot. All those, and that moment I realized the power of the repetition and the drills paying dividends had just saved me from having a crucial injury. Sustained. All I got was this scratch, and I still got the scar on my thumb. And fortunately, daughter's fine, all good. You know, a couple of bruised egos, bruised. She's never been on the skates ever since. But I wondered, I wonder what. But I wonder, has there been any situation in your life where, you know, you had to call upon some resources that you've gained from your experience on the mats?
Yeah, just similar things, really. I could definitely think of times where, like, for example, with my older boy, like riding his BMX, you know, I built a BMX with him from scratch. And so then I'm showing, he's like about 10 years old at the time, and I'm showing him some tricks that I remember from when I used to ride my BMX when I was younger. And then there's one of them, it's like it's a trick called an endo, where you get up on the front wheel and your back wheel's in the air, and you find ways to bounce that up so that it happens. It looks really cool. And I overdid it and went straight over the handlebars. But I went straight into a perfect breakfall, and I sprung straight up. But when I was a kid and BMXing, I went over the handlebars, and I still got scars on my elbows from using my elbows as brakes. Like, instead of break and fall, I was like, ugh, like that.
Right.
That was my reaction as a kid with no martial art experience.
Right.
My reaction as an adult with many years of martial art experience was a perfect break fall. And he at the time was like, whoa, you all right? And I'm like, I'm fine. It's literally, I just tucked everything in. I wouldn't choose to do it. Like, a few years ago, I was at this casting for something, and the guy said, oh, martial arts, how can you do a break fall? Or do something. Can you run in and just like throw yourself down? I'm like, this is a concrete floor. No. I was like, I don't fancy doing that. I'm not going to purposefully throw myself onto concrete floor. But it worked perfectly. I think when you've had it forced upon you in, you know, lightning reaction is just like tuck in. And it sounds like, yeah, you know, you just instinctively reacted. A break fall, you know, does exactly what you just said. You know, fall, and then your ability to get up. I mean, it's impressive if you did a nice technical stand up with your roller skates on.
It's like this.
Yeah.
That's
Ready.
hilarious.
Who's next? Who wants some? The bin? I
Exactly.
mean,
Who
I'd
wants
see
some of this?
yeah, at this point, whether your daughter thought you were amazing or a lunatic, but
Like I said, she has not been on her skates since it's been what, 5 years, 6 years?
yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
you win some, you lose
Hill
some.
was asking for trouble, maybe. I don't know.
So the lesson I got out of that is life is never smooth sailing, or in my case, smooth rolling, and sometimes we're going to fall. Sometimes unexpected things happen.
Yeah, but everything you fall back to the level of your training, So
Yeah.
if you've done lots of stuff, you're probably going to be okay. You'll bounce a lot more. And even if you don't, even if you have, an injury because of something that happens, well, the lessons that you learn on the mat and the challenges that slow you down, on that kind of day-to-day thing might prepare you differently. I've definitely had friends outside of martial arts who go, "Oh, I really hurt myself. I can't do anything." It's like, really? What have you done? And they show me, and I'm like, why are you not doing stuff? It's like, you shouldn't be on the sofa. The doctor will tell you, if you go to the doctor and say, "Oh, I've really hurt my back." And I don't know if they still say this, but they would certainly in the past, they would say, "You better just take it easy and just lie down." That's the wrong advice. It's like, you should not be doing that. You should be moving. I'm not saying you should be doing everything at full tilt if you've hurt yourself, but you should definitely be moving about. Your body works by pumping blood around it. That happens best when you're moving. You heal better if your body's pumping blood. You shouldn't be just laying still. In certain way, there might be certain injuries, maybe a big brain injury might be different, but
I completely agree.
Medical things require movement. So,
yeah. Last question, Nick, before I let you go. What has been the biggest driving force for you to get to black belt level?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest. If I'm really honest, I don't know. Like I said earlier, I knew it was kind of coming. I'd been a brown belt about 3 years at the time. I guess maybe from when I started, my initial thought was, as a white belt, like, how do I become a black belt? Because those guys are gods. And I wanted to. I actually realized at the beginning very quickly how hard it was. Like I said, I couldn't do that Kimura that they showed me in training, and I thought I was pretty strong and fit, so I'd be able to do it. And then I thought, well, perhaps if I just get to blue belt, I'll be happy. That was my goals changed pretty quickly to some sort of level of realism, I guess. I'd be realistic. You're not going to be a black belt in the next couple of years. It's going to take a hell of a long time. So I took the pressure off, though, I think, and just allowed myself to enjoy the training. And then, as we went along and as we reached purple belt, I heard that was the hump belt. So it's like, if you can get to purple, you're probably going to make it. If you call it a thing that you can make, you can get there, whatever, a destination. I don't know. And then when I reached brown belt, I was like, well, 100% the black belt is there. But at the same time, so is anything else. And I think maybe that's the driver. Then on reflection is that, like, I realized when I was a brown belt that I was going to be a black belt, in a good amount of time that I would have taken to achieve that. And I could have been a doctor in that time. I could have done anything, and I could do anything. It's like, so if I can achieve the black belt, it proves I can do anything I want to do. And maybe that's the biggest driver to get there. So people get really hung up about this, like, oh, don't focus on the belt, just enjoy the journey. Of course I enjoyed the journey. But I wanted the belt not because I wanted it to say, here, look at me, I'm a black belt, but just to prove to myself that I could do anything I wanted to do. If I put the time in, if I could dedicate myself to it, then I will achieve it. And there are things that I want to do now with it. You know, like I keep talking about surfing and jiu-jitsu. That's my thing, is surfing and jiu-jitsu. And then, you know, I like networking with people with jiu-jitsu, hence we're having this, even us having this conversation. I want to use jiu-jitsu in that way. I want to like widen my world and my network by having this medium of jiu-jitsu, and having reached the point of black belt really enables that, really opens the door to do that. And I just think that's a healthy thing in life, to be able to reach out to the world. I can be having this conversation with you in Australia and I'm here in the UK, and I love it. You know, like you're saying, I will take up all your time, but I love it. You know, it's like, I'm just getting to talk about it and hear your stories as well. That really interests me. I learn stuff in the same way. And so being driven to the black belt, I think that's what that was about for me. I didn't have competitive goals like a younger athlete, because I'm 43 now as well. I still compete and I like it, but it's not like my big thing. I didn't say, oh, now I'm a black belt, I want to be the black belt world champ or anything like that. I just want to like learn more about other people, and using jiu-jitsu to do that is what really. So with networking and jiu-jitsu, with business people, like your thing of mat to mastery, and like how you translate this over into a professional world, you're doing your talks about it to people. I'm like, that's exactly what I do all the time, is talk to people, and I always bring it in. I was doing recruitment recently, and I would often bring it into the conversation with candidates and business connections, and I would say, oh, I don't know if you know, I do jiu-jitsu, and it would make for a really interesting conversation. And actually, a lot of times I would find people that did it, and they would say, oh, I do jiu-jitsu. I'm like, no way. Then they find out I'm a black belt. It blows their mind, mostly because they would be lower belts. And I just, and then we end up having a similar conversation to what you and I have.
There's this instant connection, isn't there?
Yeah. And what a way to do business, that we say, oh, well, you know what, let's talk jiu-jitsu, and then we'll just sell the product at the end. It's fine. Yeah, I'll take the job. You seem like you're definitely an honest guy. You've got some good values. So I would never, and I stand by my values as well. So when it was in recruitment, I would never, deviate from my values. I would be honest to them and say, it's not the job for you, but I still want to have this conversation, or I don't have a job for you, but I still want to have a conversation, so I think that if you stand by the values that have been taught to you through something like martial art, and you're going to go a long way in whatever it is that you want to do. So
well spoken. Beautiful, Nick. Do you have any final words of wisdom you wish to share?
No, I think just the best thing is, like I said earlier, about probably one of my favorite things is about don't let the fire go out. If you're somebody that is struggling with anything, whether it's martial arts or any other sport, or any personal goals, it's like, it might be challenging you right now. It might not be attainable right now. What you thought was your goal you might not be able to complete that right now, but don't let the fire go out. Let it burn low if necessary. You might need to go and develop some new skills. You might need to go and do something else in order to reach that ultimate goal. So do that, keep that fire burning a little bit, and then, come back to it, put some more fuel on it. Whatever your metaphor is for that, or however that metaphor translates into your life, and put the fuel on the fire later and really get it roaring. Don't let it go out.
So well spoken, Nick. Thank you so much for your time, your words of wisdom, the stories you've shared. I really appreciate it.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been great to have this
100%. 100%. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for those of you who have tuned in and listened. Remember to stay focused, have some intention behind that focus, and always trust in your abilities, trust in your own driver, your goals, your dreams, whatever that might be, and be positive. Go win some. Us.